Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with some more very cool Beasts of the Mesozoic releases. As you can see, first of all, we've got the brand new 1/18th scale Allosaurus, and I am so hyped to get a look at one of these Allosaurus from the Beasts of the Mesozoic. But on top of that, we also have the brand new theropod dinosaur display stand, which I'm very excited to check out as well, which of course we will break out here in a little bit and just kind of take a quick look at it. And as you can see, this one is a large theropod dinosaur stand, so it would work with our larger Tyrannosaurs, and of course this Allosaurus right here, which is a pretty big figure himself. So as far as the packaging and everything goes for the stand, you can see it's basically got a shot of the 1/18th scale T-Rex, which is a gorgeous figure right there. And again, you can see all of the information basically as you move through. And then if you take a look at the back, you can see how the stand works, the different ways that you can use it, and of course, help your Tyrannosaurus to stand and look incredible, which again, some of the poses and stuff they've chosen definitely show off how incredible of a T-Rex that model is. But we of course also have the Allosaurus, which you can see as far as this one goes. You've got the little window area here where you can kind of see the Allosaurus hiding there within. You've got the species name down here, and then over here a very nice shot of the artwork here for the Allosaurus, which also looks incredible. A little bit different as far as the coloration goes on that version there compared to the version that we actually got, which is interesting. Not something you often see from the Beasts of the Mesozoic, but it still looks super cool. And then if you turn to the side, you again have the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo. And then if we come to the back, you can see again a nice shot of the Allosaurus, as well as all sorts of information about the species and the figure. And then down here, you can basically see all of the other figures that are coming out right now from the Beasts of the Mesozoic, which one of which you can see is a repaint for the Zuniceratops. You can also see the Dilophosaurus, the Deinonychus, the Smilodon, and the Achillobator. So lots of really cool stuff releasing from David Silva and the Beasts of the Mesozoic line right now. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, and check out our gorgeous Allosaurus. So here is our Allosaurus, and wow, this one is so much nicer and so much more impressive than I think I was giving it credit for at first. You know, I almost at one point was thinking I'm just probably going to get the other Allosaurus that they're releasing, because I just feel like the other Allosaurus looked way nicer as far as the colors go than this Allosaurus. But now actually having this one here in hand, I can say that would have been such a massive mistake on my part, because this has absolutely got to be one of the nicest Allosaurus figures I have ever seen. Even if this wasn't like a fully articulated figure, just the sculpt and the coloration actually applied to this is so darn nice. And it looks way more naturalistic in person than I was expecting it to as well. Like, they've really outdone themselves, I think, with this Allosaurus. That is, again, in my opinion, got to be one of the nicest Beasts of the Mesozoic figures I have seen yet. Let's see if I can get this guy to stand on his own. So you can definitely get him to stand, but he is still a little bit wobbly just because he has some pretty significant weight to him. It seems like the longer he kind of stands on his own, he sort of starts to sink down and does eventually fall. I've had him in this position now for like a minute or so, and he's doing all right, so hopefully he continues to do all right. But again, depending on the position, it seems like it kind of weakens the ankles because it is a pretty hefty figure. But also included, we have the assembly instructions, which I always say are very important if you are new to the Beasts of the Mesozoic. It's something that you definitely want to read over and pay attention to. And on top of that, we've also got a card, which the card features the artwork that we saw on the front of the packaging. Absolutely gorgeous artwork. And then a little dino toy photography on the back with some information and everything here about the Allosaurus. So very cool, very nice, high quality card as always. On top of that, we also have the stands that we have here for the Allosaurus that come with it. We are, of course, going to check this out here in a little bit, as well as the new display stand for the large dinosaurs, but you can see basically what we've got going on as far as the stand and the pieces included, which again, like I said, we will go over a little bit better here in a minute. And on top of that, we've also got the alternate feet, which you can see you've got kind of like the bent toes and then the kind of more open toe look. So a little bit of variation to the feet that you can use to switch the feet out for the Allosaurus, and again, create different dioramas and poses, however you want to display your figure. So, well, I think we're at that point where we probably should jump to a closer look and check out this gorgeous, gorgeous Allosaurus. So, starting up at the head sculpt of the Allosaurus, and we may have to hold him at a little bit of a distance because green is one color that my camera, for some reason, up close doesn't agree with. But you can see, again, the Allosaurus head sculpt. We'll try to get a closer shot, I think, with the head. Nope, it's messing with it. Anyway, the head sculpt looks really good. The skin texture looks really good. We've got quite a bit of variation as far as the skin texture goes. You can kind of see like a little bit bumpier scales here up near the nostrils, finer scales and skin texture as you move through. You know, all the other areas pretty much of the face. Really fine skin texture there in the palate area. We've got a lot of variation of color to the Allosaurus, which you can see. You've got different variations of greens, and you can even kind of see like light brownish tones picking up here and there in the face. You also have some reddish browns that kind of run up there into the eye socket area, as well as striped down through the palate. And then you've got some really cool blues as you move up into the top of the snout, up into the crest of the Allosaurus. And it all looks really, really nice. Like, again, it's one of those situations where, like, when I was looking at the original images of it, I was, like, not super sold on it, but now here in person, man, it looks so much nicer than I was expecting, and the colors just work so perfectly, honestly, for this dinosaur. As you move down, you can also see a striping effect, kind of striping through the mouth of the Allosaurus as we move through. We do, of course, have lips for the Allosaurus, which I'm sure many people will be very excited about. The jaw does articulate, like you would expect for a Beasts of the Mesozoic figure. Once you open the mouth and you take a look at the inside, you can see the tongue and everything sculpted out in there, all the detail. Looks really quite nice. We can see a pinkish tone on the inside of the mouth. Looks like maybe there's a wash in there as well. And it does have a perfect gloss coat, giving it an extremely wet look, that very nice saliva-like look as you move through. You can see all of the teeth are sculpted, looks like individually, and also painted really quite nicely. We can see the same thing for the lower jaw. You can get a nice look at how good the teeth and everything look. And of course the tongue. The tongue does appear to be articulated. Let me see if I can pull it up. Well, it's a little hard to get a hold of it, but you can see I've pulled the tongue up a little bit further. It definitely articulates. You can actually kind of see like the joint back there where it articulates. I'm just having a hard time getting a hold of it because it's a pretty small tongue. But as you can see, the jaw also works really nicely for the Allosaurus. Moving back, you can see the brownish tones begin to stripe down the neck, although they kind of break up and end fairly early. You can see some more brown spots, one of which is actually in the ear of the Allosaurus. Moving along the top of the head, you can see a dark brown kind of running down the center, and then a slightly lighter brown following along, and again, that does follow along the spinal column all the way down before breaking up into a striping effect, moving out through the course of the Allosaurus. We've got some really nice skin wrinkles and folds and stuff as you move down through the course of the neck. All sorts of really impressive skin detail for the Allosaurus. You can also see a lighter tone here moving along the underside of the neck and throat, and kind of like a slight scoop-like appearance following along the center of the throat of the Allosaurus, which is pretty cool. You do have some nice areas of articulation as you move down through the neck. You've got one spot right here, you've got another spot right here, and then you've got another spot, possibly this one might actually be a floater, I'm not too sure, right there, and that does allow for some really nice posability in the neck of the Allosaurus, which is actually pretty nice. A lot of the larger figures were kind of tough to articulate in the necks when it comes to the earlier on figures, but these ones seem to be working a whole lot nicer. As you can see, the range of movement is definitely a good bit more impressive left and right. You can get a pretty good amount of movement upward as well, and then downward. So definitely, I would say they've really improved the articulation of the neck of the larger figures for sure. Kind of makes me wish they'd re-release some of the older ones with updated articulation, which I have heard rumblings of that possibly happening, but I don't know for sure if it's been confirmed or not. But as you move along, you can see a lighter brown begins to pick up again following along the spinal column. You can see again that they've done a very good job of applying the paintwork in a way where it really highlights the skin texture. As you move down, you can see variations of color, as my camera goes nuts, variations of color here of different tones of greens and maybe even some little hints of browns as you move along. You can see the brown striping kind of running down along the side of the Allosaurus. Starts to kind of get smaller as you move back there above the hip region. We've also got the arms sculpted out really quite nicely. Again, the skin texture, if you get nice and close, you can see how good that looks. It looks very reptilian, but really well done. And you have all sorts of variations of greens and browns moving down through the course of the arm down into the hands. You can see a lighter tone of brown moving down into the fingers, and then the nails sculpted really nicely. They do have a nice glossy black for the nails as well. You can see, of course, we've got all sorts of articulation moving down as you've got the arm articulation in the shoulder, forward and back, and out away from the body, which actually comes out pretty far. You also have elbow articulation, forward and back, and can swivel. Yes, definitely. And then you've got wrist articulation, which can go pretty much up and down and swivel a little bit. You can see as you move the wrist, though, that the lighter tone of the underside there of that joint does show up, and I can see that over here as well. Looks like, I don't know if maybe it was always like that or if the paint is just kind of coming off as I move it. I'm not too sure, but you can kind of see like the remnants of some old paint right there, and then the brighter joint that they have there. But I don't think that takes away from the figure at all, in my opinion. Not everyone will share that opinion, but I think it looks really, really impressive. As you move back, of course, you can see you've got some brownish tones for the underbelly of the Allosaurus. Looks like we've got a nice dark wash present down here as well, definitely highlighting all of that skin texture and scale detail on the underside of the Allosaurus. We do, of course, have the joint of the Allosaurus, which can go left and right pretty nicely, actually. And then I'm not getting too much as far as an up and down motion, but again, it is just right out of the packaging. Sometimes they're not the smoothest when it comes to the articulation right out of the packaging. You have to kind of wear them in or warm them up with a hairdryer or something like that, or warm water. But as you move back, you can see the thigh looks really good. You've got some more really beautiful skin wrinkles and folds moving along the back of the thigh. You can kind of make out the muscle definition moving down. We can also see a big bulging calf muscle. Some more darker browns appearing basically around the knee area moving down. Then the greens kind of lighten up before transitioning back to a brownish tone. Again, with that dark wash, you can really see the dark wash popping the skin texture on the back. But then we have like that reddish brown moving down along the front of the foot. You've got some nice scoots moving down the front of the foot down into the toes, and then you have that lighter brown down there on the undersides of the toes. Again, the nails painted with a nice glossy black, and yes, you can see the dew claws. As far as the articulation goes here, you can see the hip articulation is very smooth forward and back, a little squeaky, but very smooth. We also can move out away from the body and back in. You've got knee articulation, which is a little stiff, but there you go. You can swivel the knee as well to kind of change the positioning of the leg if you would like. And then you've got articulation right here in the ankle, forward and back. Can also swivel. And then another area of foot articulation down here, which can also swivel. So a whole lot of articulation in the legs as well. And then we move back up here, you can see an area of brown that kind of overtakes a large area of the tail and back behind the hip, and then again disappearing back to the greens, and then we've got nice mixtures of greens and browns moving out through the course of the tail before ending with a nice dark brown tip. And again, we have that striping effect moving through the tail as well. You do have, again, the joints of articulation, up, down, left, right, can swivel as well. And then again, you've got another one right here, can do all those same things. And then another one right here, can do all those same things. And then this little section here is actually a wire, a bendable wire, so you can bend the tail to articulate it further. But, of course, you're going to see the same thing on the opposing side because, again, this is a fully articulated Allosaurus, so it's not going to really look any different from one side to the other. But as you can see, it is an absolutely gorgeous Allosaurus, again, from both sides. By far, one of the nicest Allosaurus figures I have ever seen. And as you can see, we can still get our Allosaurus to stand on its own, which is pretty nice. Again, the joints of the legs, even though the Allosaurus is pretty heavy and pretty hefty, the joints are still a lot more solid than they used to be. Like if you go back to the Raptors, the joints would kind of crumble when you would try to stand them, although the new Raptors have been improved to actually be able to stand on their own because the joints are, again, a bit tighter. But as you can see, even if it does kind of start to crumble in certain positions, it does still seem to stand pretty nicely, and the joints are definitely helping to hold the figure up. The new joints, again, being nice and tight. But as far as a size goes, for our Allosaurus, for a length from the tip of the tail to the snout, about 20.5 inches or 52 centimeters. And then for a height, you're looking at about 7 inches or around 18 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Allosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our very much so large Allosaurus here. And you can see, pretty much exactly as I expected, the Allosaurus does have quite a nice size to it. And if we bring in a few other beasts of the Mesozoic figures, first of all, we have the Dryptosaurus, which you can see is definitely a little bit smaller than the Allosaurus. We've also got the beasts of the Mesozoic Electrosaurus, which is very clearly a whole lot smaller, as well as the beasts of the Mesozoic Daspletosaurus, and it's not until you get to this size range of the Tyrannosaurus where you kind of surpass the size of the Allosaurus. So the Allosaurus is just a little bit smaller than these larger Tyrannosaurs. Now, there aren't all that many super articulated Allosaurus out there, so, I don't have that many to compare with this version. First of all, we have the Jurassic Justin version that has fairly recently come out, which you can see is quite a bit bigger. We've also got a standard-sized version of a Mattel Allosaurus, which is very clearly a good bit smaller. Same deal for the Hasbro Jurassic Park Allosaurus Assault figure. You can see is also quite a bit smaller than the Beasts of the Mesozoic version. And honestly, no matter what way I go, I would think most of the Allosaurus that I have in my collection are probably going to end up falling quite a bit smaller than this Allosaurus from Beasts of the Mesozoic, outside of course, the Jurassic Justin version. And some of the larger Allosaurus that have come out from Mattel, I would say, are probably similar in size to this. But hopefully those comparisons have given you at least somewhat of an idea here as far as the size goes for this Allosaurus. And just to kind of help you here with one more face-to-face comparison, we do also have a Mattel T-Rex next to the Allosaurus. This is the Extreme Damage T-Rex, so like the Extreme Chompin size range. Again, giving you somewhat of an idea here of the size of this Allosaurus. They're kind of similar in size with just a little bit extra body mass on the T-Rex. So a quick look at the stand that I have here, the large theropod stand basically. You have this area here, which you can see if you actually put next to the Allosaurus, you can get that pretty high up. So you can definitely create some really cool poses using this stand. You can also see that you can basically articulate this. If my camera would focus, there we go. You can move this around to basically aim it whatever direction you would want, which will also help as far as the different poses. And you can readjust this completely because you can pull this off and then basically move it to wherever you would like, and then you basically just lock it in. You turn it sideways to pull it back out, and then you lock it in like that to readjust the stand to basically wherever you would want. You do also have these very large circular sort of, there we go, get focused again on it, stands where we have a peg on the underside, so you can put the foot of the dinosaur again in, like, for instance, the 1/18th scale T-Rex, and it'll, of course, stand on these. On the underside, you also have these very nice soft pads that you can put, which have an adhesive side to them where you can stick them, I would think, on the underside of that, and again, to help make sure that the dinosaur stays nice and stable and safe. So really cool to have all of this stuff included. Again, if you have had one of the larger dinosaurs, like specifically the 1/18th scale T-Rex, and maybe you wanted to display it where it's just basically standing there and everything, these are a really nice way to go. Definitely a nice way to create different poses and everything for the T-Rex. As far as the stand that we have included with the Allosaurus, it's pretty much exactly the same thing, but smaller. And to kind of give you an idea of that, here is the Allosaurus version, here is the large theropod stand, and you can see obviously a pretty big size difference. So you clearly don't need this large one for the Allosaurus, though it would obviously help and work, but the size range is a good bit smaller for the actual release in the Allosaurus itself. But you can, of course, also take this type of stand, which is included with the Allosaurus, but is also much smaller, similar to what we have here, and use that as well to prop up and display your Allosaurus in whatever way you would like. So this brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Allosaurus is absolutely gorgeous. They have done a tremendous job on this, and I am so excited to finally have this one here in person, in hand, to take a look at with you guys. The sculpt on this is honestly out of this world. I think they completely killed it when it comes to the sculpt and the fine detail, showing off the overall beauty of Allosaurus in a very realistic and lifelike way. Again, the skin texture as you move through is absolutely phenomenal. Like, it truly is, especially when you move into the stomach and you see all of the different slight skin wrinkles and all of the different cracks and crevices to the skin and the scales. Like, it is an absolutely marvelous sculpt. On top of that, you have a very cool paint scheme for this one, which at first I was almost, again, kind of overlooking, I would say. And it wasn't until only a few weeks ago that I was like, you know what, I am definitely going to get that Allosaurus. I really want to get that one into my collection. And I will, of course, be buying the other version of the Allosaurus as well. But this one, I just really wanted to get a look at the Allosaurus sooner rather than later. And I really couldn't say no to this one as time was approaching. I just could not turn away from this Allosaurus, even though I was kind of like, I had made up my mind that I was only going to get one of the two Allosaurus. I ended up getting this one, and I'm obviously going to get the other one as well. And I'm really happy that I did get this one because the coloration on this is so much more natural and just generally so much more beautiful in person than I was ever expecting it to be. I think they did a fantastic job on the variations of color, added the actual application of the paint, which also looks super lifelike, and the overall color scheme, which again just looks fantastic on this Allosaurus. And you also have tons of articulation, as you always do with a Beasts of the Mesozoic release. And when it comes to the articulation on this one, it actually seems to work a lot better than the older figures did, so that as well is a massive, massive plus. So, far and away, in my opinion, one of the best Beasts of the Mesozoic figures to come so far. If you are interested in grabbing this, these are just about to ship. I was lucky enough to get this one a little bit early from David Silva, who was kind enough to let me have an early access look at this guy, rather than waiting for my order to go through in a few weeks or whatever. But it should be there, again, arriving at their warehouse any day, I believe. So these should start shipping right away, which means if you do want one, you definitely need to order it now so you can take advantage of that pre-order discount, because they are slightly discounted with the pre-order. So make sure you grab this, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.